You think public space is neutral. It isn't. It's a hunting ground with fluorescent lighting. Every room has eyes, every crowd has memory, and every casual exchange leaves residue. The first mistake you make is assuming you're unseen. The second is assuming what you leak is harmless. This chapter breaks the lens you're using to view the world. Right now, you believe behavior is expression. That posture shows confidence. That honesty earns trust. That warmth builds allies. That lens was designed for civilians. It gets men selected out. Power does not begin with action. It begins with observation. Before domination comes cataloging. Predators don't rush. They record. They don't confront. They triangulate. While you perform your personality, they log your tells pace, tone, eagerness, hesitation. You think you're living. You're being indexed. Public life runs on asymmetry. The one who sees more controls more. The one who reveals more loses first. This is not morality. This is physics. Heat moves from hot to cold. Information moves from expressive to silent. Every word you volunteer reduces your future options. Every reaction you display narrows the range of masks you can wear later. You've been trained to leak. Schools reward participation. Jobs reward transparency. Social norms punish restraint by calling it awkward. That conditioning makes you legible. Legibility is convenience for systems, for managers, for manipulators. A readable man is an owned man. He can be predicted, steered, replaced. Notice how quickly people form opinions about you. That speed isn't intuition. It's pattern recognition fed by your signals. The laugh you use to diffuse tension. The apology you deploy too early. The eagerness to agree. These are not quirks. They are coordinates on a map others use to move you where they want. This is where moral inversion begins. What you were told is good behavior openness, enthusiasm, reassurance functions as weakness in contested environments. Loyalty, when visible, becomes leverage. Kindness, when unguarded, becomes a wound. You don't get punished for being evil. You get punished for being obvious. Shattering the lens means accepting a harder truth. Public space is adversarial by default. Not because everyone is malicious, but because incentives are misaligned. Attention is scarce. Status is relative. Resources move toward those who conceal intent and away from those who broadcast need. Even decent people exploit leaks unconsciously. They lean where you bend. They step where you yield. You must also abandon the fantasy of authenticity. Authenticity is a luxury belief sold to those without rivals. In reality, identity is a tool, not a confession. The self you display should be engineered for the environment you're entering. Anything else is self-sabotage disguised as integrity. This chapter installs a new operating assumption. You are always being read, and reading back is optional for others, mandatory for you. Once that assumption locks in, your behavior changes automatically. You slow down. You speak less. You watch more. You stop trying to be understood and start ensuring you are misjudged in your favor. The lens shatters when you realize the goal is not to impress the room. It's to exit the room with the leverage intact. Survival precedes dominance. Opacity precedes control. From here on, the question is never, what should I express? It is, what must remain unseen? Power does not listen to what you say. It tallies what you leak. Every environment runs on a hidden economy where signals are currency and attention is the exchange. You are not judged by intention. You are priced by exposure. Most men think dominance is asserted. It isn't. It's inferred. Others decide your rank long before you open your mouth, and they do it using fragments you didn't know you were emitting. Speed of response. I. Discipline. Posture under interruption. The order in which you speak. These are not manners. They are bids. Signals operate in packets. A single tell means little. Clusters mean everything. One nervous laugh is noise. A pattern of appeasing smiles, rushed explanations, and early agreement forms a profile. Once that profile stabilizes, people stop testing you. They start using you. Understand the mechanism. Whoever signals first surrenders initiative. When you fill silence, you reveal discomfort. When you over-explain, you reveal insecurity. When you preempt objections, you reveal fear of rejection. Each reveal hands the other side a lever. They may never pull it consciously. The body pulls it for them. The most expensive signal you leak is need. Need for approval. Need for inclusion. Need for certainty. The moment need is visible, negotiation ends. Terms are set against you. Need accelerates extraction because it compresses time. You rush, they wait. Time asymmetry is power asymmetry. There is also the signal of compliance. Nods, verbal affirmations, mirroring before it's earned. These are read as malleability. Malleability invites load. Once people sense you bend, they stack demands until you break or become furniture. You think you're being cooperative. You're being shaped. Silence, by contrast, is ambiguous. Ambiguity is expensive to challenge. When you don't signal, others project. Projection costs them cognitive effort and reveals their own motives. While they guess, you observe. While they interpret, you inventory. This is why silence feels rude to the conditioned. It removes their ability to price you quickly. Another critical leak is tempo. Fast speech, fast replies, fast decisions signal urgency. Urgency signals disadvantage. The one in control dictates pace. Slowness forces others to orbit you. They fill gaps, sweeten offers, lower demands. You don't negotiate harder. You wait longer. The signal economy punishes excess transparency. Saying what you want, how you feel, or where you're headed gives others a script. Scripts are used to intercept, redirect, or block. You call it honesty. Strategists call it forewarning the enemy. Watch high-status operators in any setting. They speak last or not at all. They answer selectively. They allow misinterpretation to linger if it benefits them. This isn't arrogance. It's cost control. Every signal they release is intentional, minimal, and often misleading. This chapter implants a brutal equation. Expression equals cost. Restraint equals leverage. You don't eliminate signals you can't. You curate them. You replace emotional discharge with controlled output. You stop feeding the market with discounts on yourself. Once you grasp the signal economy, paranoia disappears. You're not afraid. You're precise. You don't freeze. You filter. You don't dominate loudly. You let others overextend against your quiet. From here, the question shifts again. Not what am I signaling, but which signals are predators trained to exploit first? That requires identifying the types moving around you and the roles they play. Every public space sorts men into roles within minutes, not by intent, by behavior. You don't choose the role consciously. Your signals assign it for you. This chapter forces you to recognize the taxonomy because misidentification gets you harvested. Walkers move through life exposed. They broadcast emotion, narrate thoughts, and fill silence like it's a threat. They believe visibility equals existence. Walkers confuse activity with agency. They talk to feel safe, agree to feel included, and reveal to feel real. In the hierarchy, they are infrastructure, useful, replaceable, easy to steer. Walkers are not stupid. That's the trap. Many are competent, even talented. But they are legible. Their strengths are visible, their limits predictable. This makes them ideal targets for soft exploitation, extra work, emotional labor, blame absorption. They don't get attacked head-on. They get leaned on until they collapse. Watchers are quieter. They observe before engaging. They ask fewer questions and answer fewer still. They test reactions with small probes, pauses, neutral statements, controlled disagreement. Watchers aren't dominant by default, but they are dangerous to underestimate. They're mapping the room while walkers are decorating it. Most watchers stall here. They collect data but never convert it into leverage. They enjoy understanding more than acting. This keeps them safe but stagnant. They avoid being used, yet rarely command outcomes. In power terms, they are scouts without armies. Then there are hunters. Hunters don't scan everyone, only those who leak. Their attention is selective, surgical. They're attuned to imbalance. Who needs approval, who fears conflict, who overshares. Hunters speak just enough to trigger tells, then withdraw to watch the spill. You think the conversation is mutual. It's an extraction. Hunters don't dominate loudly. They let others expose themselves, then step in late with authority that feels earned. They exploit timing, not force. They remember everything you forget you said. They don't confront weakness. They schedule around it. Here's the part that destabilizes people. Hunters don't see themselves as villains. They believe they're efficient, realistic, adapted. In competitive systems, they're often rewarded. Promotions, alliances, loyalty, they accrue these by aligning with power and discarding liabilities. Walkers call them cold. History calls them survivors. The danger is not becoming a hunter overnight. The danger is being treated like a walker while thinking you're a watcher. This delusion keeps you exposed. You think your restraint protects you, but your occasional leaks still mark you. Partial silence is still readable. Roles are fluid, but transitions are violent. When a walker tries to act like a hunter without discipline, he overcorrects forced aloofness, clumsy dominance, obvious masks. That draws attention. Hunters notice masks. They test them until they crack. This chapter's psychological function is ruthless clarity. You are not special. You are categorized, constantly. If you don't know which role you're playing the weakest one by default. The strategic objective is not to announce a role, but to remain unclassifiable long enough to choose outcomes. That requires understanding how environments apply pressure and why transparency gets selected against over time. That pressure is not personal. It's evolutionary. You think exposure is punished by people. It isn't. It's punished by systems. Humans are just the delivery mechanism. Every environment applies pressure until only certain behaviors remain. Markets, institutions, crowds, none care about fairness. They care about efficiency. Over time, anything that slows coordination or leaks advantage gets eliminated. Transparency is one of those liabilities. History makes this obvious when you stop romanticizing it. The loud were not remembered. The strategic were. Courts rewarded those who concealed intent. Wars favored commanders who misled allies as effectively as enemies. Empires collapsed not from brutality, but from predictability. The moment your next move becomes obvious, resistance organizes around it. Crowds intensify this pressure. In groups, humans unconsciously test for weakness because weakness creates risk. Someone emotional destabilizes the unit. Someone needy distorts incentives. Someone too open becomes a vector for manipulation. So the group applies pressure, subtle exclusion, mockery, extra demands until the behavior stops or the person exits. You call this cruelty. Nature calls it filtration. Public space accelerates selection because observation is constant. Cameras, metrics, gossip, digital footprints, nothing decays. A single leak tell doesn't vanish. It compounds. Patterns form. Reputations crystallize. Once fixed, they're harder to escape than poverty. This is why expressive men age poorly in competitive hierarchies. Early on, their openness reads as energy. Later, it reads as instability. They don't lose skill. They lose mystery. And without mystery, authority erodes. People stop deferring. They start negotiating or bypassing. Selection also explains why good intentions don't protect you. Evolution doesn't reward virtue. It rewards outcomes. A man who broadcasts loyalty attracts those who will spend it. A man who signals kindness attracts those who will test its limits. The system doesn't punish them for exploiting you. It replaces you for allowing it. Look closely at who survives long-term in hostile environments. Not the strongest. Not the loudest. The least readable. They reveal strength late, weakness never, and intent only when it's irreversible. They let others misjudge them until misjudgment becomes expensive. This is the uncomfortable truth. Human nature defaults toward extraction under pressure. Not because people are evil, but because incentives bend behavior. When resources tighten, ethics become ornamental. Those who plan for opacity keep options. Those who relied on goodwill discover it was conditional. This chapter seals the threat. If you continue leaking tells in public, you are not just vulnerable, you are maladapted. The environment will either reshape you through loss or remove you through irrelevance. There is no stable middle. The next move is not paranoia. It's engineering. If selection punishes transparency, the counter is not isolation, it's controlled ambiguity. Behavior that functions without advertising itself. That transition requires strategy, not slogans. Silence is not absence. It's architecture. Most men try to stop leaking by clenching forced stillness, rigid speech, performative calm. That fails. Tension leaks louder than words. Operational silence is different. It's active control of output while maintaining functional presence. The first shift is tempo denial. You slow everything you can without explanation. Responses arrive later. Decisions take one more beat. You let questions sit. This disrupts the other side's rhythm and transfers urgency onto them. The one who waits watches the other reveal priorities through impatience. Next is selective opacity. You answer precisely what was asked and nothing more. No context padding. No emotional framing. Facts, not feelings. If a question requires vulnerability to answer, you reframe or defer. Not with excuses. With neutrality. Neutrality starves extraction. Then comes reaction discipline. Your face, voice, and body stop confirming or denying meaning. No nodding to reassure. No verbal affirmations to smooth tension. Discomfort is allowed to exist. When others can't read your reaction, they project their own insecurities into the gap. That projection gives you data. Operational silence also requires signal substitution. You don't eliminate expression. You replace it. Where you once smiled, you pause. Where you once explained, you summarize. Where you once agreed, you acknowledge without committing. Each substitution reduces cost while preserving social function. Another critical move is boundary ambiguity. You don't announce limits. Announced limits invite testing. You enforce limits quietly through non-compliance and selective availability. Calls unanswered. Requests delayed. Access rationed. People learn your edges without you drawing them in ink. This behavior feels unnatural at first because you were trained to optimize comfort. Operational silence optimizes position. Comfort shifts to the other side. They start over-communicating. They volunteer information. They negotiate against themselves. You haven't dominated them. You've removed the scaffolding they leaned on. There is risk here. Silence attracts attention. Some will test harder. This is not a problem. Tests reveal intent. A test is an admission of interest, either to align or to exploit. Both are useful once exposed. Operational silence is not about being liked. It's about being costly to misread. When your signals are sparse and controlled, any assumption others make carries risk. Risk forces caution. Caution buys you time. Time creates leverage. By the end of this chapter, the viewer understands that power is not gained by adding behaviors, but by subtracting leaks. The loud man tries to dominate outcomes. The silent man shapes the field outcomes emerge from. What remains is the hardest step. Silence alone is not enough. The old identity, the expressive, readable self, will try to resurface under stress. It must be terminated. Operational silence fails if the operator still exists. The expressive self is not a habit. It's an identity. It speaks when stressed, explains when cornered, seeks recognition when ignored. You can suppress it temporarily, but under pressure it will surface because it believes exposure equals survival. That belief must die. This chapter is not about improvement. It's about replacement. The old identity was built for approval-based system schools, families, social circles where being seen as good kept you safe. Those conditions are gone. Carrying that identity forward is not nostalgia. It's liability. Identity death begins with detachment from self-narration. You stop telling stories about who you are, what you value, what you intend. Narratives anchor behavior. When you abandon narration, you gain mobility. You become situational rather than consistent. Consistency is predictable. Predictability is exploitable. Next comes emotional privatization. Feelings are not processed publicly. Not through jokes. Not through confessions. Not through body language. They are handled offstage, alone or not at all. This is not repression. It's containment. A sovereign does not outsource emotional regulation to the environment. Then you install a new operating identity, the unreadable operator. This identity is defined by function, not expression. In any environment, it asks three questions only: who observes? Who benefits? Who decides? Everything else is noise. Decisions align to position, not preference. The old self will protest. It will frame this as inauthentic, lonely, or not you. That voice is the residue of conditioning. Authenticity is a story told to keep you legible. Loneliness is the withdrawal symptom of no longer feeding on validation. Both pass. Exposure does not. Identity replacement is completed when you feel indifference to misinterpretation. Let them think you're cold. Let them think you're slow. Let them underestimate you. The need to correct perception is the final leak. Once it's gone, you're free to let outcomes speak. From this point on, your presence changes rooms without announcement. You're not central, but you're consequential. People adjust behavior around you without knowing why. You don't threaten. You don't reassure. You persist. This is not domination in the cinematic sense. It's domination in the structural sense. You're harder to read, harder to rush, harder to use. You survive selection not by resisting it, but by aligning with its incentives. What remains is a closing directive. A warning, not a promise. For those who try to practice this halfway. This chapter exists to cut off escape fantasies. Most men who reach this point don't fail because the strategy is wrong. They fail because they dilute it. They adopt silence as a tactic, not as law. They leak selectively, rationally, when it feels safe. That's when the environment corrects them. Half adaptation is more dangerous than none. The fully transparent man is categorized and exploited quickly. The partially opaque man draws focused attention. Inconsistency triggers testing. People probe to resolve uncertainty. When they sense the old identity beneath the mask, they escalate until it reappears. This is the cost you must accept. You will be misunderstood on purpose. Some will assume weakness. Others will assume arrogance. Both are preferable to being accurately rid. Accuracy is access. Do not announce your shift. Announcements are compensation. Do not explain your silence. Explanations are confession. Do not justify your distance. Justification is submission to external judgment. The environment does not need to understand you. It needs to be unable to use you. Expect friction. Those who benefited from your leaks will resist the change. They will frame you as changed, cold, difficult. That is confirmation, not criticism. When extraction stops, complaints begin. There is also an internal cost. Validation dries up. Feedback disappears. You will feel invisible at times. That invisibility is the tax paid for sovereignty. If you cannot tolerate it, return to the crowd and accept its rules. This path is optional, but it is not flexible. The final inversion is this: safety is not found in being liked, but in being unexploitable. Power is not loud. It is durable. It survives attention, pressure, and time without degrading. You were warned early. Public space is adversarial by default. You now know why. You now know how. The rest is enforcement. Leak again, and the system will remember. Silence holds.